Awesome. Well, I think we're just about to start if we have not started already. Um, what day is it today? Happy Wednesday, everyone, from all over the United States. I know we have people joining us from all over. And so it's just so great to be able to bring everyone together. And I thank you to ColorComm for partnering with us, Microsoft and We Communications. We've been working together on this programming, and we are very much looking forward to having you and your questions. I've been told there's been a huge interest in this specific topic. I wonder why. AI, communications, PR, storytelling, journalism. It seems that, it really is top of mind in multiple fields. And so today we have various perspectives from professionals across the board. And we're just so honored and thankful that they have made time to be able to share their story with you. We have a lot to get through today. I'm told there's about maybe 200 of you that have expressed interest in joining. And so we're really excited to bring everyone together. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome. This is the Reimagining Communications with AI panel, hosted by ColorComm in collaboration with Microsoft and We Communications. And again, just some context here. My name is Roseanne Aragon. I work for Microsoft. I'm a former broadcast journalist. I worked for NBC in Houston and covered space. So I was the space reporter. Super. And when I say nerdy, I mean that in an absolutely great way. I am a nerd and I love to get into it, love, emerging technology and innovation. And that's really what brought me to Microsoft on the innovation communications team. I love that I'm here with three in-depth storytellers, and they see stories from different perspectives, and we're excited to bring this to you today. So with that said, it's I think it's my time. I'm here in Houston, so it's 12:03 for me, and so we'll get started in just a little bit. I did want to give a minute or two for people to kind of pile in. Some context to this panel. We originally were going to do two separate events, but we thought, hey, with the work that we're doing and just so much of the convergence in our expertise, what better than to build off of all of our planning and to create a two-part experience that will take you from discussion and discovery to hands-on practice and demonstration. So this is part one of our Reimagining Comms with AI series. And this part right here is a panel. So this panel, the mission and vision of this panel is to go over and explore how AI and its emerging role is impacting communications and the PR industry. I know we have a lot of communications and PR professionals in the audience, as well as some students who were excited to help and inspire as well. This will be a comprehensive overview of what's happening in this space and through the perspectives of Microsoft, a company creating and using the tech, We Communications, a company using the tech in its work, and The Verge, a Vox Media network, a third-party industry expert. Helen is also, who you'll see, an avid storyteller, and someone who's really asking these pertinent questions that I think you'll find yourself asking as well. So with that being said, 12:05, I want to, introduce our panelists here. I'll start off with their names and their titles, and I'll also give them a chance to introduce themselves to you. So we have three panelists today. So again, I'm Roseanne Aragon. I'm with Microsoft Global AI Communications. Joining us as our amazing panelist is Kim Stocks, the General Manager of Communications at Microsoft, specializing in modern work and security. As well as Gretchen Ramsey, Executive Vice President of Content and Digital Experience at We Communications, and Helen Hadlack, who is the publisher at The Verge, of Vox Media Network. They each have their perspectives to share today, and we'll have a moderated conversation with some time at the end for questions. But if you have a question, we have a chat that's up. I would like to invite you to ask your questions in the chat. During the moderated discussion, I'll be looking and seeing, and if I can, bring in some of those questions then, but know that we have time for questions dedicated the last 15 minutes as well. All right. With that being said, are we all good to start? Give me a quick nod. Okay, great. Kim, I wanted to start off, the panel with you and really give each of the panelists a chance to kind of explain the context of their work and what they do. So Kim, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're leading at Microsoft, some of the work that you do, and really, why, you're excited to be on this panel, how AI is impacting your work?
Awesome. Absolutely. Hello, Rowan. Good morning, good afternoon to the Color Comm community. I'm Kim Stocks, and my team and I at Microsoft, we look after PR for two of the company's business groups. The first is Modern Work. So that's the group that produces our line of productivity products. We also lead with marketing a Future of Work campaign where we do a ton of qualitative research and work with our own researchers to posit where we think the future of work is headed. And we also lead PR for our line of security products. And so I can say it has been so exciting to be at Microsoft during this time. We really think that generative AI is the technology of our era. It is as significant as the introduction of the internet, the PC, and the mobile phone. And so we think, wow, this is such an exciting time for us to lead. And for a comms team, it's been interesting because we have been dog fooding, products that we're getting ready to launch. We've been thinking about what is our messaging and launch strategy for certain products. We've been listening in on customer conversations. We've been, sitting down with engineering to understand the intricacies. And it's been funny. We've kind of talked about at Microsoft, it's like, moving and working at the speed of AI because things are happening so quickly. And it's not just happening inside, but as you look across the industry, there is just so much advancements that is happening. And so it's been a really exciting time to be a part of it. And we're really looking forward to what this technology will deliver to society.
I love that, moving at the speed of AI. And I'm sure that's something that Gretchen, that you feel too, as part of We Communications. Would you kindly tell the audience just a little bit about, your work, your perspective, what you do, and how you're embracing AI?
Sure. So I lead, for lack of a better term, modern storytelling here at I sit in the digital experience content and insights and analytics environment. And we very much are, as Kim said, listening to what people need to hear, what they need to understand about AI in order to adopt it and bring it into their lives, and how we shape and tell stories, or really create surround sound stories for people to bring it into day-to-day living. And so I work closely with Kim and her team. I specifically came to work on Microsoft. It's incredible, as Kim said, the speed at which things are moving. It's such a dynamic time to be involved in communications. And as storytellers, it's our responsibility to tell things in a way that allows people to open up and understand and bring this new era into their lives. This is something I've done my entire career. Roseanne, to your point, like, why now, why here? And I've been an emerging tech lead inside the agency environment for my entire career. I was known in the early days of my career as someone who builds social practices, and we've been here before. We've seen this before, and just like then, Facebook's 19 years old now, right? Just like then, we've had to educate ourselves first, understand the science behind it in order to help educate others.
Yes. And, I remember, going through journalism. I was part of the generation that really had to do it all. And it really was, we need to get ahead of it. We need to understand it. We need to be able to do everything. And, it's funny because I was telling, the panelists before, and I'm talking to the audience now, that we really are just a bunch of storytellers that are really just digging in here. And so, you know, I know Kim has a bachelor's in journalism. Gretchen, I know you do strategic storytelling, and you do the coolest stuff with a focus on the digital experience, talking about emerging technology. Remember the digital revolution, of course, how could you not? And then we have Helen here, who we're honored to have. And Helen, I've been looking at some of the stories that you put out, and I can't help but notice it's really about helping people understand, asking questions about what is the appetite, what do people want to know? And, you know, with that, I'd love for you to be able to tell our audience about what work you're doing, what you do at The Verge, a little bit about yourself.
Great. Hi, I'm Helen Havlock. I'm publisher at The Verge, where I have been there almost 9 years, which is crazy to think about now. The Verge is a digital news publication that covers the technology industry. We're part of Vox Media. I sometimes have to say Vox with a V. Part of Vox Media with some other great brands like New York Magazine, Eater, some really fun ones. But what I do there is I work really closely with our editor-in-chief, Nilay Patel, to look at our newsroom, but also think about the business of The Verge. So as I think about AI and how it's impacting us, it's both an area we're really excited to cover. We have covered the technology industry for 9 years. It is not an exaggeration to say the biggest and most important story in technology right now is definitely AI. And I think you'll even see that playing out in some of the big antitrust trials right now. So we're obviously covering the space really closely. We have day-to-day news coverage. We have a lot of really smart journalists. We have an AI beat reporter, but I would say every journalist is having to figure out how AI is going to disrupt their coverage area right now. So every journalist is to some degree having to become an AI expert. Our newsroom are trying the tools, experimenting with them, writing about them. We also did a really cool representative survey of Americans a couple months ago on how they're using AI to see what adoption looks like, how fast this thing is moving. And then as publisher, part of my responsibility is to think about The Verge's business, where we need to go. And I think there are a lot of both opportunities and productivity in AI. You are seeing some newsrooms maybe do some things not so right, where they're putting AI content out that's not fact-checked or not disclosed, and they're getting in trouble for it. So I'm thinking about also, you know, I think AI is going to change search. Search is the primary way most humans interact with the internet. And AI is going to disrupt that a lot, which means the job of most communicators in reaching their audiences is about to change a lot. And so Kim mentioned earlier that AI looks like it's going to be one of the most important trends in technology. I absolutely agree. I have seen a lot of tech trends come and go in my time of The Verge. NFTs, sorry, we told you so. But 5G, I think 5G is a great example of, you know, there was tons of hype around it, but it was really hard to explain to someone, like, what did 5G do for you? Like, are you doing robot surgery in a self-driving car right now? Probably not. But when people try generative AI tools, usually they can kind of immediately grasp, here's what this is going to do for me. Here's what I can do for this. There's a utility to these that is really powerful. And so we are seeing this move in terms of consumer adoption way faster than anything I've seen recently. And so I'm really excited to get into the conversation with all of you.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I'll definitely be bouncing back to you in a second, because I want to talk with you and have you share what is the insight that you've learned in the research that you have. But before we get there, I really want to kind of shape the conversation here and throw the first question to Gretchen. You know, Gretchen, you're part of We Communications. I mean, what doesn't your company do when it comes to communications work, strategy? What are some of the conversations that you all have been having, you know, as a company, as a team? Minding our audience, we are communicators, we are PR professionals, we're storytellers. When AI came in, I'm sure new conversations had to be had. What were some of the things that you had to consider with the emerging technology of artificial intelligence?
Yes. So we, as you said, manage everything from insight to ideation. So immediately we had to understand how people were feeling and thinking. And this started, as those of you who have been following the news know, Microsoft's been super active this year in AI. Actually, it's been active for many, many years. But way back, almost a year ago now, when ChatGPT really captured the imagination of the mass culture, we immediately started jumping in to understand the what and why of the consumer sentiment, and really understanding thematics and how we would move forward and shape the story. And as a communicator, this is an expectation to start with strategy and really having empathy for those you're trying to communicate, not only to, but with. The idea of co-creating this new future together. And Helen, all the beautiful gusto with which you described what's going on right now. This is the greatest transformation any of us will see in our careers, for certain. As I said earlier, yeah, we've been here before, but not with the speed and agility we've had to bring to this moment. So agility, I think, is a key word in terms of what we immediately did. We have been moving with the speed of AI, as Kim said earlier. And that requires us to have daily insight, real-time understanding, driving and shaping stories that in a very simplistic fashion, educate the public on what is going on, and also inspire them, to see the future and want to be a part of it and want to help co-create what is coming.
Yes, co-creation, I think, is such an important word when it comes to considering how AI is being a human co-pilot. Before we get to Helen, I wanted to ask a similar question to Kim. Gretchen talks about how these conversations kind of shaped her daily workflow. I now want to ask you about Microsoft, how we're approaching the responsible development of something as massive as AI.
Yeah, it's a really great question. While we have so much optimism for this technology, we are not benighted. We have a real responsibility to our customers, to the world, to deliver technology that is safe and secure. And we take that very seriously. We have a set of responsible AI principles that we live by, not just from a development perspective, but all of us embrace them in some way. And so it's really awesome for me to witness things. A lot of people don't know, for many years now, we co-founded an organization that has to do with content provenance and authenticity. Most recently in September, we announced that our AI generated images in Bing would be attached with watermarking technology. And that's really important because, as Helen was saying, people want to know the content that they're consuming is this generated by AI. So we're doing things like that. We are also partnering with governments to make sure that we're adhering to voluntary commitments for the safety of the content or technology. And so kind of across the board, we're doing a lot of things that are focusing in on making sure the technology is as safe and secure as possible. And I'll also say, we're studying and researching a lot. We have a team of cybersecurity professionals that are watchdogs for nefarious activities that we're seeing, and compiling that information and sharing it with the world so that we can all learn from what's happening around us.
Certainly an exciting time and to be working on this kind of technology. Helen, I know our audience members, and they'll probably be raising their hands like, yes, like that's me, can you kind of talk to me? One of the reasons we brought you on this panel was because you are asking the questions that many people are asking, and you brought that great research to we. I've just been hearing about it. And, could you kindly share a summary of some of the top of mind sentiments or questions that are being asked that you've asked about AI?
Great. So yeah, we surveyed Americans about how they're using AI, how they're feeling about it. I'll say big takeaways. First of all, 1 in 3 Americans as of May of this year had already tried a generative AI tool. It is certainly higher by now. And so the rapid spread of this is really high. It's not just how many people have tried it, it's how it's captured our imagination. I think it won't shock this audience, particularly younger audiences. More than half of people have tried these tools. If you ask like Gen Z about it, they'll say like, we're having conversations about AI multiple times per week. So it's really captured people's imagination, and it's moving really, really quickly. You know, when you just look at how much better the creative has gotten, we're already at a point from kind of the, you know, cheesy AI generated images of last year to this year, like you can't tell if Drake wrote that song or not, right? And so it's moving really, really quickly. People are really interested and also anxious about how AI is going to unfold in their workplaces. A lot of people, more than half of Americans, think AI will disrupt their workplace. And so that's just become immediately clear to people. And when you ask people, you know, what do you think we should do in terms of guardrails on this? Things people are really concerned about. They're concerned about crediting the source material that trains the AI. So whether that's an artist or an author, they're really nervous about that. Although when you ask people, what did you do with their generative AI tool? Almost everyone has like asked it to copy someone. So humans are funny. They really want to see transparency and disclosure. I think watermarking is an interesting idea. I think it's going to be important in an election year. How many people right-click an image, though? I think there's going to have to be bigger action by some of the distribution platforms to combat disinformation. People would like to see the government maybe get involved in regulating it, but anyone also says, you know, US government doesn't really understand technology. I think a lot of people watched the TikTok hearings, which went viral on TikTok, and said, actually, how are we going to do this? And so I think as an organization thinking about how to approach AI, there is the side of this that's, okay, people are using it work. They understand places where it can make them productive. They are also nervous about things like ownership, things like disclosure, things like fact checking. And so as you think about how to use it in your career, I would say being cognizant of the potential benefits, but also the potential risks and things people are really anxious about is going to be really important to juggle.
Thank you so much, Helen. That's great perspective. And I just want to, you bring up a great point. You talk about jobs. And I know that's something that's very top of mind. You know, the things that I've been reading and seeing as I keep up with the news. You know, I know this is something that Microsoft has really thought very intentionally about how AI is a human amplifier. Kim, I wanted to, you know, throw a question to you there. Some may worry that AI will eliminate jobs. What's your take on that?
I think with any successive technology, especially one as significant as AI, there are going to be opportunities and there are also going to be impacts. And you are right. At Microsoft, we have designed our co-pilot technology to assist human agency and not replace it. It's part of the reason why we have used the term co-pilot, because we really want to make the point that this is an assistive technology. I am also, in talking about this, reminded of an economist by the name of Eric Brynjolfsson out of Stanford. He's done a ton of research on AI and its impact to industry and society. And one of the things that he has said, and we're seeing, with even in our own comms organization, as we're using the tools, is that at least initially, AI is going to replace tasks and not jobs. And it has this real opportunity to get rid of the drudgery that a lot of us experience in our day-to-day. And so the opportunity for all organizations and all leaders is to think about how jobs or roles can be reimagined when you can get rid of some of those rote and repetitive tasks. And so that is something that our leadership at Microsoft, Frank Shaw, we have a dedicated team thinking about how AI, as you know, Ro, will kind of advance our discipline in some exciting ways. And so I really think it's an opportunity for folks to really dig in and think about how things can evolve.
I love that. That resonates with my soul. AI being a human amplifier. I love the word drudgery, because we all know with just very little what that means. That means having to repeat, having to copy and paste, having to do those things. And I think that's a great, transition into kind of learning, because we're thinking about our audience. We are communications and PR professionals, and I think it'd be helpful, to go around and see how each of you are using AI in your work, maybe some of the drudgery that it's removing, with the hopes that it inspires some of those in the audience that, hey, maybe I can try that out. So I don't know, Gretchen, Helen, Kim, does anyone want to go first with their favorite, we can maybe call it AI hack or AI tool that they...
Yeah, I wanted to kind of bridge what Kim was saying about reimagining our work. I mean, the greatest thing about AI, or generative AI as it stands today, is that it augments human creativity. And I'm using the term creativity in the broadest sense of that term. It's beyond just the tedious task or the repetitive task. Yes, that is a miracle that AI is bringing to all of our desks for sure. But this idea of changing the way we think about things, that's what I mean by creativity. And so what we're doing here in our work is really using this very powerful tool to help us understand audience needs and the barriers that they might have. We're using it to understand new audiences that we might not have talked to enough, or emerging audiences, etc. In particular around this conversation, because it is so disruptive, there are new audiences that are emerging. And we're seeing, much like the advent of the internet, we're seeing educators and artists and these new power groups, I would call them, emerging around AI. So we have to understand them and how they live. And we're using AI to help us do that in new and interesting ways. We're using it to create immersive stories, sharpen our language, using it to just simple things like proofing, and that's probably a tedious task. And so this idea of creating new ways of looking at our work, bringing it to brainstorms, for instance, sitting there as AI is our co-pilot, using Bing Chat Enterprise or Midjourney to really craft new ways of thinking about, or concepting on the spot even, guys, crafting new ways to look at something right there in the room together. And that's what's adding the agility and alacrity to our work for sure, but also this broad new world of reimagination that Kim talked about.
And I might... Oh, go ahead, Helen.
Just I might suggest a framework of 3 ways to think about AI in the workplace, right? One way is exactly what Kim said, drudgery. The least controversial uses of AI are getting rid of tasks you didn't want to do anyway. I've talked to PR people who have said, you know what, it's really tedious to go get all the clips of my client. I would love to automate that and then do something more productive with my time. In the journalism context, there's summarizing. There's a lot of different tasks. There's also cool things when you think about web accessibility, better captioning, better metadata, things that you can just get rid of drudgery. The second, which I think Kim and Gretchen have both alluded to, is AI and creativity, right? When you ask people what are they doing with AI tools, a lot of what they're doing, we would consider creative tasks. They're writing, they're creating imagery, they're creating photos, music, and it's giving a lot of people access to creative tools they didn't have before. So when you ask people, did AI make your work better or worse? In the context of any different creative use case, most people said it made my work better. Now, if you talk to someone who's a professional music maker, they'll usually tell you right now they can work faster and better without AI tools. But it's giving a lot of people who do not know how to make music an entirely new tool set. And so there is a whole creativity side of this that's pretty exciting. But then you get to people's fears about jobs and what it means for their jobs. We're seeing this play out in the Hollywood strikes right now, of people being really worried about their likenesses and how these technologies could impact them. And I think those are justified concerns, but I think the Pandora's box is open. It's going to be hard to close again. And so figuring out how to adapt is going to be really important. And maybe thinking of a single technology in 2 of these buckets. There's a lot of technologies now where you can deep fake yourself. A lot of Hollywood people are saying, oh, this is really scary. If I'm a background actor or I'm just a big star, I may not get paid for all of my work. I may not have access to my likeness, but I talk to a lot of podcast hosts who actually spend a lot of time like re-recording something where they flubbed a line. And those people would love to just use AI to fix that thing they said a little bit wrong, because it would save them a lot of time and reduce drudgery. So that's one example of where the same AI technology can both be reducing drudgery in the context of one job, but bringing anxiety in the context of another job. And so I think thinking of what are like things that make you more productive, maybe what are exciting, like new kinds of art and tools you didn't have access to before, but then, you know, being a little cognizant of what people are nervous about is a good way to think about it, and something we've tried to bring into my own job, I would say.
Definitely. And I think, that's something that where, programs like this are very important. It's about having conversation. It's about including voices, adding seats to the table, making sure perspectives are heard. I do want to ask Kim what her favorite AI tool is, and then we can talk about, the field of how AI can empower others. So Kim, did you want to share a tip with the audience of how you're using AI before we get into that?
Oh my gosh, yes, so much, and great responses from Gretchen and Helen. I completely agree. I'm using it all the time. Microsoft 365 Copilot, we are testing that, Bing Chat Enterprise. And I would say there's a few things that I'm liking. One is M365 Copilot. For example, I did a LinkedIn post, for this panel. It was the end of the day. I was kind of tired, and I just said, you know what, I want words help to do this. So I put in some bullet points and asked it to write the LinkedIn post for me. Voila, I had it. And then I was surprised when I went to LinkedIn. I don't know if you all are finding this, to post it. LinkedIn is offering AI capabilities as well. And so I took my post and said, let me see what they're going to do with it. And so it was really cool just to have that capability. Another thing that sometimes it's been helpful is using Edge when you have a big document like a white paper, and you kind of need to synthesize that information and understand it. And so this notion of interviewing a document, I don't want to have to read through everything, but if I can just ask a couple questions and get a summary or find something specific, I feel like that has saved me a ton of time. And then the last one I'll mention is we have a Copilot in Microsoft Teams, and it's been awesome because sometimes I will join a meeting, a few minutes late. I'm working on that. But I can, query the meeting and say, hey, what did I miss? Or, what's the vibe of this meeting? Can you summarize the action items? And so instead of spending time having someone do that or me do it, it's easy now for the Copilot to create the summary.
Isn't that amazing? You can get the Copilot to help you. What were the action items? When was my name mentioned? And it's really, saved me hours of work. Did want to I'm looking at the chat too. And please also, if you have questions, feel empowered to put them in the chat. We can go over them at the end and I'll sprinkle them into our moderated discussion. But what an amazing panel today. I'm reading from Gwen. Thank you, Gwen. Shout out to Kim Stock. She has been on our one of our ColorCom mentors. Awesome. Creating new leaders. Thanks a lot to all of you. So, that's so great and such good energy. Thank you. Okay, so I have a comment from Felicia here. This session really expanded my knowledge of AI beyond the drudgery. So informative and thought-provoking. The tools are amazing. Thank you. Thank you to the panel. Yeah, I mean, that's bringing us back to the point of this. It's to help you maybe, in a way, not be afraid of embracing something new. And I think, these conversations are pertinent to how you can see yourselves trying something that may be a little bit different. Talking about seeing yourselves in the work, I do want to talk about, how important it is, the human aspect of AI. I mean, at the end of the day, artificial intelligence will always be at the core of human story, and humans always being at the center, humans being in the loop. With that, this is ColorCom, and, the mission and vision is to be able to help, empower others. So, Kim, I wanted to ask you a question about, bias. How is AI how is Microsoft approaching the element of bias when it comes to AI? And I remember we've been talking about this, we've had conversations, and I'd love for you to share your thoughts there.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing is our engineering team. We have a set of principles around inclusivity. And it's great because those principles mean that we have to hire teams that are diverse and inclusive, and that's really important to the technology that we build. And when we think about those teams, it is also who's on the teams, you know, researchers, anthropologists, scientists, policymakers. So you can really get that array of individuals to contribute. And then it's also thinking about, you know, the data sets that we have and making sure that they are reflective of the rest of the world and not narrow. So those are some of the things that the engineering team is doing to make sure that we are really living the principle of inclusivity and really combating bias.
Thanks. Gretchen, Helen, did anyone want to add to the discussion?
Yeah, I did. I talked earlier about co-creation and this idea of being participatory with AI when we're using the tools, and kind of these large language models are learning from us. So I think our responsibility, as Kim talked about, is to bring all the ethics we can as communicators to the tools in our work, to really think about common tropes and how we can assist with flooding the internet with the right imagery, the right language, etc. I also wanted to talk about something really interesting that folks might not think about just from a tip perspective, is the language translation and dialect translation that is available within these tools when we're thinking about creating story worlds, content creation across a variety of audiences, etc. It allows us to do this certainly with speed, but also with more accuracy than maybe we would have done in the past. And so that also, just this idea of like the diversity of storytelling being more global in the way we think about the way we tell stories, more diverse in the way we tell stories, we can do that now in a much more concerted fashion, certainly with all that agility and speed we talked about as well, which is important in certain instances. I mean, we see, certainly what's going on this weekend, what had gone on this weekend, and being able to help as communicators with speed and all the diverse understanding that's needed. AI can help us with that.
Yeah, I think there are good things about this, coming back to the things we should be cognizant of, careful about. Bias is a huge one. As Kim mentioned, a lot of these AIs are trained on big data sets that are just the internet. And the internet is full of a bunch of humans who are often infallible or racist, right? And so you do have to be really careful. And we have seen some bad outcomes of AI applied in policing, where it's not been great in predictive policing. It's caught people into things they shouldn't have been. Totally innocent people, a very opaque algorithm identified them. It's pretty scary. We've seen it in places like healthcare and housing loans, where you see historical bias creep into some of the decisions that these AI make if you're not really careful. And so I would say that issue of bias is really important to know. And then the issue of misinformation, I think, is really important to talk about. We have this nice term as we cover the AI space, which is hallucination. Sometimes AIs hallucinate. But what we really mean is AI sometimes lie, and they lie very persuasively. And so when you are looking out for that, right now, I would say we at least if you're interacting a lot with one of these tools, to be skeptical, to double check it, because they're wrong maybe 10% of the time. What happens when they're wrong like 0.2% of the time? Are people still going to check, or are they going to trust these systems more and more and not take that extra step to say, oh, actually, was the AI correct? Was this image or video I saw correct? I think as these systems get more and more accurate, One unfortunate thing is that I think when they are not accurate, when they do lie to you, they will lie very persuasively. And I think we're going to have to be really careful as consumers of content, as makers of content. We've already seen like weird AI showing up in court cases in America of someone asked ChatGPT and it like invented court precedent that didn't exist very persuasively. We're all going to have to be really careful and remember to do our homework. Think about what the data source is, check for bias, think about whether it's accurate, double check it. And we're all going to have to be pretty careful as communicators going forward.
I did want to add, I just wanted to add to that, Helen, our role as communications professionals has always been to help make ethical decisions in storytelling. Now that is ever more so important now. And we have to think about understanding how the science works, so we can be the ones in the room helping to use the science correctly, to be the ones who stand up and talk about ethical issues in that room, to help direct the way we're telling stories, the way we're using AI to tell those stories, the way we're correcting AI or finding strategies to correct AI. And then, strategizing, really thinking about how do we use these tools in a way to improve the conditions, the ethical environments, and that we live in.
Kim?
Yeah, great points. I was going to say it's such a awesome point, because one of the things my team is learning, our team is learning as we're testing these products, is we are having to develop some new skills, and there's a little bit of a learning curve in that, trust but verify mentality is really important. When you get something back, you can't just trust it right off the bat. And one of the things I love about our technology is the annotation. So whether you're getting an answer in Bing Chat, it will give you the sources so you can click on that. The same if I'm using M365 Copilot and I will say, what's happened on Project X over the last 3 days, and it will give me a summary of what's happened on the project, but it will also annotate for me, and here is where you can see the source of this answer. And it's great to have that, but it is like a learning curve that we're having to like kind of get into this new mode of embracing this technology and making sure that we're verifying with double clicking into the annotation. So it's such a great point from Helen and Gretchen.
Thank you. And I'm just going to read some questions, and we can go back to these, in a few minutes when we're doing the Q&A, or if you feel inspired and empowered to answer them now. I think some of them have been answered, but I do want to read it from Trina, talking about, advice on introducing AI at an organization that isn't necessarily eager to embrace it. Another question, how should we approach AI and sensitive or confidential comms information? Is there ever a concern about an AI tool saving or gathering information that shouldn't be shared publicly? Is there a line that should be drawn in terms of proprietary or confidential info not to share with AI tools? So those are two questions we have right now. And I'd like to, please put your questions in the chat. Again, we're going to have some dedicated time later to go through most of what we can. So we'll love to invite the questions there.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the privacy question from Valeria, which I think is a great one. We have seen this play out in workplaces, but also in individual creators. We saw a crazy 7-day hype cycle on TikTok of independent novelists who got really excited about ChatGPT, using that to train on their old material, help them suggest new chapters, help them shape the plot. They were sharing these best practices with other novelists. And then they realized, oh no, I've just given my entire catalog to ChatGPT for free. And now someone else can take my creative work, train their novels on it. What have I done? And we were like fully at crying TikTok apologies in about 4 days. It was wild. So if you look at this, people are pretty cognizant to where is my data going. Now, ChatGPT added a toggle so you can turn off the fact of like your interaction helping train ChatGPT. A lot of enterprise AI software, I would say Microsoft, I believe, is one of them. If you're using it in your workplace, generally what it is doing, it is quarantining your data to that instance of the AI so that it's not getting shared. But you do want to be a little bit careful of like using any AI tool on the web. What permissions are you giving when you interact with it, when you train it on your historical data? And you are seeing companies like Microsoft or Adobe, who makes Photoshop, do interesting things of saying, okay, you can kind of take your training data. This is part of our model. You know, it's inside of your workplace. And so people are building it into their business models. So I would say, check on what your workplace is using. If it is something cleared by your workplace, most likely the data is staying in-house. But if you're trying a bunch of random tools on the internet, be a little careful, check the terms and conditions, see what you're agreeing to.
I see Kim is just nodding her head. I know security is a huge thing for her. Did you want to add, Kim?
No, that is so well said.
Jumping off the page.
It's so very true. And it's one of the reasons that we quickly tried to come out with Bing Chat Enterprise is because we were hearing from CISOs that, hey, my employees are using generative AI, and we don't want another bring your own device, situation where we can't manage things. And so something like Bing Chat Enterprise, if you're an M365 user, you can put sensitive, company information into Bing Chat, and it will respect that tenant boundary, and that data will stay inside of your tenant boundary. So that's just a really important consideration, I think, right now for a lot of companies and organizations. So agree with Helen's comments.
Now more than ever, piggybacking off that, I think it's important to educate yourself on AI, do programs like this to really learn what the technologies are, how they operate, how it works, and education. I think the learning journey we've all had has been integral to us being at the top of our game, our ability to be able to do our storytelling work and to do it well. So I would also encourage just, learning as much as you can. And I know this is part of that. Okay, some other questions in the chat. What are your thoughts on how AI tools such as ChatGPT will affect college and university classrooms? That's a question there. I know we also have some students who are in the audience as well. And then what are your thoughts on AI use policy for marketing and communications teams to reduce risks? So I'm just going to put some of those out there if there's any someone.
Yeah, I can on the education question. This is where we're seeing, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of activity, a lot of experimentation and understanding. It's not surprisingly, educators and youth are the ones who are driving a volume of understanding currently. And what I would recommend someone named Ethan Mollick. He's a Wharton professor. One of the earlier adopters, I would say, in the academic environs. He has a beautiful blog. He does a lot of writing about AI, but he also was the first, I believe, fact check me, please, to include AI as a requirement in his course syllabus. So students are required to use AI in their work. And they have to show how they're using it and what they're learning and how it's improving their ability to understand. So really super progressive. And I think we're in a much different place than we were maybe 6 months ago, I would say, in terms of how educators are using AI and understanding, just like we did, and Kim can talk a lot about this, just like we had to adapt, to this hybrid workplace during the pandemic and post-pandemic. We are now adapting to education with AI. And so we're going to see a lot more experimentation here, for sure.
Alyssa asked a great question about policies at work, which I think is important to talk about. We spoke a little bit about being cognizant of where the data is, fact checking it, be transparent. I would push it maybe even beyond policy to what norms do we need to develop for our workplaces that haven't had to exist in the past. So I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails from PR professionals who most of the time should be emailing the writer or editor. But I can tell you a good amount of these I can transparently already tell are like insane things ChatGPT has done, rhyming poems, like all over the place. When we think about how we email and how we communicate in email, I think it starts off kind of innocuous, right? Like maybe I can write a little bit of a better email or go a little more quickly if AI helps me with this, but it can go pretty quickly to AI is responding to this email, and then we have AIs emailing each other, and then how are we as humans communicating? And I don't think that is something we're going to fix with policy. I think that's something we're going to have to fix with norms of how we work together, norms of how we disclose what we're doing. And so I would think of this both as workplace policy and also workplace norms. And I think a lot of that is going to change pretty quickly. And we're going to really have to advocate for it. It's actually not a great outcome if PR people are sending AI generated emails to me and my AI is sending, like that's not the right outcome. So we're going to have to think about this on both fronts.
I think you touch on a really important point, Helen, about the involvement of humans in this change management chain. People are super important. There was another question earlier about like, how do I get my organization to adopt to something they are not interested in adopting? And I think people having champions internally to experiment and kind of show the way is one way to manage that for sure. And just getting in there and experimenting and showing what happens with those experimentations.
Absolutely. You're talking, Gretchen, and it reminds me of I have a woman on my team. Her name is Aisha Freeman, and she's like, I feel like this is our Hidden Figures moment. The moment in Hidden Figures where Octavia Butler was like, I'm going to learn this IBM mainframe, and I'm going to be the one that's going to understand it and take it back to my team and get everyone trained up on it. And so I do think it is about, finding the group of people or the person that kind of rolls up the sleeves and digs deep. I know early on at Microsoft, we, had a team that would say, hey, can you go out and try these tools and let us know what you think after a week? And so it does take that, like just get in there, try it out, learn and share with each other. Sometimes in my team meetings, and I know the Xbox team does this too, the Xbox PR team. It's like, okay, 5 minutes. Like, what did you all experiment this week with on AI? Like, what did you learn? Anything any epiphanies you had, any new prompts that you've learned that really work well? And so we kind of just make it a part of our norm and our rhythm to share it all. It is about having that conversation about the good, bad, and the ugly and everything in between.
And there's such a beautiful vulnerability in that too, Kim, just everyone learning together and acknowledging that there is failure in the system and that it's okay and safe and even encouraged to take risks right now.
I totally agree. I mean, I think, for me, it's about how can we bring some fun to it? Let's do a challenge. We're in this together. We're all just human. Let's figure this out. What an amazing conversation we've had so far. Time flies. For me, it's 12:54. Can you believe it? What an engaging conversation. I do want to, leave our audience members with just, one advice or message that you kind of want to leave them with. Maybe it empowers them to use AI in their work. Maybe it's a tip, or maybe it's, a message of encouragement. But maybe we can do like a round robin, maybe a minute each, and then we'll close out with our Loriella. Okay. Who would like to go first? How about Helen?
Great. I mean, I would say as you think about AI in the news business, Erica asked a great question about news events moving quickly. I think the tip I'll give to all of you will be these tools are here. They can make you more productive. Try them, but also be aware that now everyone has tools to make more content and more content that is not necessarily accurate, that is not necessarily safe, and put it out into the world. I think we'll probably see the social media companies try and be ahead of the government and how they moderate this. Government can't do a great job of moderating, actually, because of the First Amendment. So you're going to see a lot of that action. But as you are a consumer of media, be skeptical. Be especially skeptical as there are tense news moments as we head into an election cycle. It is easier than ever to create disinformation. Check your sources. Check where you're reading things from. Be really careful in how you're doing it, because the barrier to creating fake content that looks really authentic has gone down. So while there's really exciting stuff going on, I would also say be a skeptical consumer as you go into next year.
Kim?
Wow, it's such a great question. I'm thinking about so much advice is swarming around in my head, but maybe for all of us as communicators, I do think that this is a moment of empowerment. This is a time where things are changing. And so we all have this opportunity to jump in, to learn, to be part of the discussion, to push the boundaries and to advocate for what we want this technology to bring to our discipline. And the choice is really ours. And so I would just say, stay active, stay curious, and form an opinion on how the communications discipline should embrace it, and be very vocal within your company, have a point of view, because it is, this once in a lifetime opportunity where we're shaping the discipline.
Love it. Gretchen, close us out.
I'm going to borrow and transform slightly a quote from Brad Smith, who's the president of Microsoft. So he has this quote where he says, don't ask what computers can do, ask what computers should do. And I would say that for AI, don't ask what AI can do, but ask what AI should do. So when we're starting out as communicators and we have some kind of challenge we're trying to solve or a story we need to tell, begin with asking what needs to be done and what story needs to be told, and use AI to help you do that. As I was saying, there's so much. I think beyond the walls, if there are walls, of ChatGPT, which is where most of our familiarity is. There are so many tools being created right now. Video tools and music tools and, as I mentioned, language capabilities and customization that we've never had the ability to use with such immediacy and depth. And so I would start with that strategic question always. What should AI do?
Comms strategy. Thank you so much. Special thanks to all of our panelists. I know you all have such busy schedules, and I just thank you for your time, and I thank our audience for their time as well. With just 2 minutes to go, I hope that you feel empowered. I hope that you feel inspired and are more curious than when you first came. We'll be sharing a list of resources, as well as we have a part 2 of the panel where we can get hands-on. We will be showing demos. Again, this is another collaboration between Microsoft and we. With that, I want to have Loriella Miller, who has been working hard on this program, share and close us out. Loriella.
Thanks, Ro. Again, I want to thank all the panelists. I'm Loriella Miller. I work with We Communications as the Senior Manager of DEI. I really want to thank our partner ColorComm for giving us this platform to bring this topic to its members. This has been such an exciting conversation, and I know you're craving more. So just like when you go see a great movie and you want that sequel, we've got a sequel for you. So next week on October 19th, and I'm gonna ask Bernita to drop the RSVP link into the chat. We'll have 2 experts on AI, Joe Mirabella from We and Elaine Chang from Microsoft, who are actually going to give you a demo to take all this information that we've been talking about and show you how you can incorporate it, how you can use it in your profession, in your daily life. So don't miss that. And also I dropped into the chat, and also I think ColorComm will send it out. We have a resource on our We website that's a great tool if you just want to learn more. It's an AI readiness playbook. So check that out if you want some more resources. So thank you again to our panelists, Gretchen, Helen, and Kim, and of course, Roseanne, for moderating such a thought-provoking conversation. And thanks everyone for being a part of this. And again, thanks to ColorComm.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks.
Bye.
Al.